Episode
239
of the Chiro Hustle podcast. And we have Dr. Brian Dooley coming in from
Spartanburg, South Carolina.
otherwise known as Sparkle City.
Sparkle City.
And that's where the home of Sherman College of Chiropractic is. And you've been working there for a while now.
I believe I'm in my 8th year.
Yeah, man. And people don't know what that takes, but what does it take for you to be an educator and to work with chiropractic students for 8 years?
A lot of patience, for sure. It's interesting because when growing up, I never thought I would speak in front of people ever. It was just not something I ever felt comfortable doing. And then I had the opportunity to get into teaching about 8 years ago, and I've loved it. I mean, it definitely it's different. I'm still in private practice, but it's different because now all the headaches are Dr. Cordero's. I just come in and do my thing and get out. But it definitely takes patience for sure. It definitely takes a heart to serve people. I don't think you ever get into teaching for the money. Not that, I mean, I'm fine with what I'm doing here, but it's definitely a purpose-driven type of a thing, because the cool thing is you get these raw kids, really, and I can say that since I'm 49, and so more and more people are becoming kids to me. But you get these raw kids that come into school, and then to see them graduate and then jump into their own practice, that does take patience. It takes patience on their part, because chiropractic school is intense and it's grueling. It beats the tar out of you at times, and then it takes patience on our part as faculty to help them navigate through that, because it's not just a show up, get an A, and get out type of program, not remotely.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that we should, dive a little deeper on, of working at a university and being in private practice. That's a pretty unique skill set. How do you change hats between the two, and how does that add to your life, being the educator and the practitioner?
The changing of the hats can be interesting at times, because I teach basically in the mornings and then practice in the afternoon. So I leave school and then I head to practice, and you do have to change that mindset. If you've had an interaction with a student, if you've had an interaction with a colleague or a boss that maybe wasn't so good, you have to leave that behind so that you can give the best care possible to the patient that's in front of you. In my case, it's actually, I guess it's a double-edged sword. My office is an hour away from Sherman, so I drive an hour and then I'll practice. The nice thing about that hour is I can usually process my day at school and then pick up where I need to be as far as practicing. The interesting part about that is because while I am at school, I can tell the students, hey, this just happened literally yesterday. What would you do about it? So I look at my office as it's a laboratory for all the things that I tell the students. So I can use just not only real life examples, sometimes pretty doggone close to real time. Like, hey, this happened yesterday. Hey, my CA just quit and here's how she did it. How would you handle it? Right. And so it gives them a lot of practical knowledge and not just the theoretical stuff that's in a textbook.
Well, Dr. Brian, I do want to point out that this is your second appearance on our show, and I want to thank you for coming back and rejoining us. And since our last interview, can you maybe touch on what's changed? Maybe quite a lot has changed since, in the last year, everything that's been going on. But has anything improved for you? Have you had to make any drastic changes? What has your last year of life been like?
Practice-wise, life is still pretty good. I'm practicing as normal. I never had to close down. We were always considered essential here in South Carolina. So really, practice had a pretty good year. So I didn't worry too much about that. Probably the big change occurred at school, because we're on the quarter system. So for 2 quarters or 6 months, we were completely online. And when we learned that this was going to happen, that was in the week before final exams. So we had about 2 weeks because we had a 1 week break in between quarters. So we had about 2 weeks to get all of our content that was very in-person lecture driven and create videos. We had to create videos off of our PowerPoints. Now you have to create assignments. You're having to create discussions. You're having to create new rubrics, just a whole bunch of stuff and you had to get a whole quarter's worth done roughly in about 2 weeks. Proud to say the school did that. Was it ideal? Not remotely. Chiropractic is a hands-on profession. So we're all about connection. And so it was difficult to do that, but that's the thing that we were in. So you had to learn a totally new way of teaching and probably interesting with everything online. In order to assess a student properly, you're going to actually have to do a whole bunch more assessments. So it turned into weekly assessments. It turned into weekly discussions on the material you were talking about. And that was actually better, in my opinion, because when you're live in class, you're going to have about 5 people in the class that are going to be the ones that always talk or always ask questions. Other people, maybe they're nervous about asking a question. Maybe they're just shy dealing with people. Maybe they don't understand the material. But this way, what we were actually able to do was grade online discussions. And the way I would grade it would be, A, did you participate in the discussion? And B, did you answer 2 other people to where it was not just yes or no, or I agree, disagree, but why? And it was easily and has been and continue to have been some of the best discussion I've had amongst the entire class. So I believe, to a degree, as strange as it sounds, being online actually brought more connection between the class as far as in a discussion mode. So then last quarter, so that was the fall, we went 50-50 online and in person to see how things would happen. And that was interesting because you did have students that A, got exposed to people with COVID, or B, had COVID themselves. So now you're in a quarantine situation. So the interesting thing was, well, how do we get the material out to the students? And so we use Microsoft Teams. And so we just started Teams, and the students then could chime in from home, or they could just listen to the recording later, and anybody could listen to the recording. And so we've actually brought that forward and kept it. So now a student will be able to refer back to whatever they learned on campus. So this quarter, we are fully online. We've also instituted what's called the flipped classroom concept, where so if I have a 3-hour-a-week course, instead of coming to me for 3 hours, one day they can spend the course time to look at the videos that we've been already done for the online version, get a sense of the material. I can give them an assignment or a discussion, and I can see where the class on an average or on the whole is strong with a concept or weak with a concept. So then we can actually spend a whole bunch more time on the weak concepts. What I like is basically when you're in class, you give a lecture, and then there's time at the end to discuss the practical side of it. Sometimes you didn't have time to do that. Sometimes you had 5 minutes, maybe at the most you had 10 minutes. And now what we're able to do is take these other 2 class hours, take that material, and I can construct activities to where they have a super strong practical application of how to do this knowledge. So it's definitely different than the way we've done it before, but knock on wood, I'm really enjoying how it's going.
Really cool, man. I think that when you discuss how you've had to adapt with the current state of affairs, you've learned how to adapt as a practice in private practice, but you've also learned how to adapt as a educator. And when you learn that some of the strategies that you've adapted to actually create a better community experience for the education process, that's super cool. And I don't think a lot of people realize that some of the constraints were actually a benefit to adapt to a better strategy. And when you get pushed to your limits, that's when, the next thing happens. And we never invite that because that's a lot of work. But when it gets pressed upon us, we learn to adapt through it and to create what's best for everybody involved, which I commend you guys. Running a higher education institution is one thing, but doing it under the constraints where it's a hand-on profession and saying, hey, you guys are going to do this remotely, that's a whole different thing to have to interpret and to delegate and to roll out. So I know that none of this was easy. But on the other side of that, what did you find happened to the hunger and the want for chiropractic in your private practice?
I think it was as good or better than normal. I know the people in my private practice, to a degree, it gave them a place to go, to get out of the house because you can't go anywhere else. The other side of it, it did give them a sense of freedom because a lot of people would walk in with a mask, and I chose not to wear one. So we're not under a law that we have to in the state of South Carolina. So I let people know that I'm not going to wear one. And I respect if they want to wear one, you wear whatever you want. I mean, you can wear a Chewbacca mask if you want to come into the office. I don't care. A lot of people was like, oh, thank heavens. And so when they would come in, they would take the mask off because they liked breathing the free air. So they knew they had one place in their life. I mean, I get it as a small business owner. Me personally, I respect other small businesses. And if they have rules about masking, then it's my choice whether or not I'm going to do it. And sometimes the mandate is just different for different businesses. So I can choose to go to that place or choose not to. And if I go to that place, instead of making an enemy with somebody, in my mind, I should respect their business and just choose to do whatever. Here in South Carolina, it's not so bad. You go to a restaurant, you might have to wear one till you get to your table, then you take it off, and that's done. I mean, it's a silly rule maybe, but it's the rule. Okay. And no big deal. I'm more interested in these small businesses surviving per se than making a political stance. If I have the opportunity to make the stance, I'll make it. But I think that was the big thing with practice was it was a place where still is where people just feel free to do what they, normal life. It's probably as close to what they can find in all, considerations. I mean, we do the things like we wipe down the tables, those types of things. Some people were nervous about coming in. So I would say, well, do you want to call me from the car and I'll tell you when it's free? Yeah, I'll do that. Very few as far as that, but that was one thing to do. So the idea was to serve people, and the idea is to serve people with chiropractic, because when the body is innate intelligence is being expressed without interference of the subluxation, all the body systems work better, to include the immune system. So we just harp on that message a lot, and patients get it. Patients get it.
Well, that's just it. Is chiropractors and any practitioners for that matter should be practicing sanitary procedures from day one. So this is just another like calling home moment to say, hey, keep your office tidy.
Right.
It's nothing different, business as usual. But really my question on that line was, do you find that more people are looking to chiropractic as a solution to stay healthy because of the era of confusion and disruption with what they're seeing on the media and what they're seeing? Things have just changed a bit. Like,
yeah, I definitely probably saw an uptick on the average number of new patients coming into the office. And it's for, I think what's happening is people now are legitimately thinking, all right, what can I do to increase my bank account and health? So finding ways, I noticed where I used to live in Pickens, there was a bike trail right behind our walking bike trail. And a whole bunch more people have been out biking and walking. I think people are going out and exercising some more. And I do believe people are understanding that, let me do the proactive things. And the first thing anybody should do in any sort of health regimen is get your spine checked, because anything else you do is going to be improved by a nervous system free of the interference of subluxation. And so by creating or giving that message, and that's just harping on that message, it's sort of taking a shotgun of patient education that you can use. And now I'm using a sniper, and I'm hitting stuff from a really long distance. And the way you do that is with a super focused message on not so much just chiropractic and immunity, but your life is better when you're able to handle stuff. I mean, there's If there's one coronavirus, there's going to be another one down the road. So what are you going to do to put you in the best position to get through that situation? There's no guarantees, but number one, start with a good functioning nervous system. And so people are looking for that type of thing. They don't know it sometimes when they come to the office. I just feel like I got to try something to keep myself to be healthy. And then we can work through that a little bit to where they're like, okay, yeah, this is why I'm here. And it's almost been easier closing all the sales lately, just because people are looking for a more healthy way, and they're understanding that proaction is probably better than reaction.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction I was hoping our conversation would go in, because I really believe that people are looking for chiropractic. They just don't know what it is. And they didn't know that having a chiropractor on their health team was going to be somebody that would be necessary, except for, the classic cases that, are deemed chiropractic cases would come in for, slip and falls and car crashes and, oh, my baby's got colic and these types of things. But now people are looking at it as a proactive lifestyle addition to say, hey, I just want to be healthy. I want to have a better functioning immune system. I want to have a better functioning, body. I want to feel better. I want to have somebody on my team that will actually give me advice on natural health. And I think that that's something that I've seen the trend shifting as well. I mean, I spend a lot of time with chiropractors, and it's interesting for me to just to show that for the longest time, I'm like, everybody should have a functioning nervous system. Everybody should be interested in having a high level functioning body, but who is the one person that can help them? And that's their neighborhood chiropractor. And I think that that's something that people are going to be more curious about as they start to come out from the darkness and step into the light and realize that chiropractic is a solution for them and their family to stay healthy long term. And then they get the education. I've talked to so many chiropractors over the years, and what do they always say? We got to tell a story. We got to educate more.
Right.
Like if I had like $100 for every time a chiropractor's like, hey, we have to tell a story more, or, we have to educate more. You're in the education zone and in practice. So you absolutely get it. Like we have to educate the ones coming up, and we have to educate the ones coming in. And if we can educate the ones coming up and coming in, then we can start to educate the ones that are on the fringe. And the ones on the fringe are the ones that absolutely need chiropractic care as much as the ones that already understand it. So I just hope as we develop as a culture that people look to chiropractors more and more for their health needs and not just for the pain. They look to chiropractors for the solution.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned tell the story. Well, the story's already been written, so it's already there. And patients understand. I mean, for some reason, I hear people are worried about talking about innate intelligence. So it sounds too airy-fairy. It's too religious. It's too whatever. But patients get it. When you talk to them about, hey, when you cut your finger, does the Band-Aid heal you or does your body? And every one of them says your body does. Yeah, well, that's the difference between you and the cadaver. I cut the cadaver, nothing's going to heal. And so the same thing that heals that cut runs every other system of your body. And the way that it does it is a message comes from the brain, goes down the spinal cord, out the spinal nerves to every cell, tissue, organ, or muscle. So when you have a subluxation, which is a misalignment, we're putting pressure on that nerve, so it interrupts the communication. And I ask my patients all the time, you ever have a miscommunication with your husband or your wife? Right? And so when that happens, what's it like at home? Oh, things are unsettled, things are chaotic. Yeah, that's the same thing that's going on in your body. So as a chiropractor, imagine we can help realign the bones of the spine, and your brain and body are talking to each other like every husband and wife ought to. And that's what we're doing. Then any other stress that comes across your body, be it physical, chemical, or emotional, you're in the best position to handle it. Do you want that, or do you want to be, let me just keep getting hit in the head with a baseball bat, the rest of your life as far as dealing with stress? And so they're like, yeah, well, I want that. Great. Lay down on the table. Let me check your spine. So it's really that easy and simple.
When I was a kid, I used to think it was the Band-Aid that healed the cut.
You had a horrible somebody educating.
Hey, like dumb kids.
I understand. That's all right.
So maybe you could tell us who are some of your mentors? They could be chiropractic or not chiropractic based, living or passed on. Like, who helped shape Brian Dooley into who he is today?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say chiropractically, some of my biggest mentors would be Bill Decken, who's the chair of our philosophy department here. He was in school. He was teaching while I was in school. I've got Dr. Ron Castellucci, who is a preeminent in the field of chiropractic pediatrics. And so he was my instructor here. And now that I'm here, he's one of my best friends, which is great. Dr. Armin Rossi, who's got 40 years plus in the business. He's seen everything. Dr. Christopher Kent knows everything, as smart as he is. So those are probably some of my biggest chiropractic mentors right here around campus. Probably my biggest non-influence or non-chiropractic influence might be my grandfather on my mother's side. So to me, that when I use the word hero, I don't say it too often about too many people. And he was the first, just because the guy was amazing in how he created relationships with people and just how he operated. I mean, to this day, I've got his picture on my dresser at home. And so I look at him every day and I try to get inspiration from him every day in order to, because my definition of just a good human is him. And so if I can be half of what he was, then I think I'll be doing some pretty good things. And so my kids are an excellent inspiration, and they are mentors to a degree because they've helped me change and break some family cycles. Not that they were overly crazy, but things that had to change. So they've certainly made me better. And then last but not least, my wife, God bless her, for living with me is not easy to do. And she has hung with me all this time. And now we're starting to reap the rewards of what a life in chiropractic can give. And it's been a lot of fun. So the way I look at it is everybody I meet's a mentor, because I've got an opportunity to learn something, even if it's something I don't want to do, even if it's something that's not for me, that's good knowledge. So I put everybody in the mentor category, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really good. It's honorable to hear, how you've shaped your ideas around the career that you have. I think that's really cool to hear these stories from people. And that's really why we host this show, is so people can get to know who chiropractors are and why chiropractors do what they do. And I just wanted to touch back on the last question we asked you is, it's so much different, the stressors upon people today, like right now, than ever before in my lifetime. Like, I'm 42. And I can't tell you a year of higher level of stress over this past year that people have gone through than ever in their life. And before that, people were like, wow, the food people are eating is more toxic. The water people are drinking is more toxic. The air people are breathing is more toxic. Well, now the mind is the last frontier, and it's becoming more toxic. It's becoming more toxic with stress of thought, these feelings of confusion, uncertainty, the ideas about, what's tomorrow going to bring, whether it's political or it's societal or whether it's a mandate or what's next, what's coming, what's going on. People are at like peak state for stress. And I think that when we talk about, the subluxations, they can come from thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And right now, the human person, as we are, we have more thoughts, traumas, and toxins than ever before, compacted into 1 year than I think have ever been present in my entire life. So I think right now the chiropractor's calling is greater than ever.
Right.
And to take the power of the adjustment to the people is really what the whole world needs. An adjustment. The whole world needs a chiropractic adjustment. And if we ask this question all the time, what would the world be like if everybody got adjusted? Well, we wouldn't have the same turmoil that we have with control of the media. We wouldn't have the same turmoil that we have with control of the medical system. we wouldn't have the same turmoil that we have about like confusion. So I think the whole world does need to get adjusted, and they should all look into finding a local chiropractor to at least build a relationship with, to see if there's something going on, because so many chiropractors are just like you, Dr. Brian. They have capacity to be a servant, but people don't know what chiropractors really do. So I think now more than ever, we do need to adjust the whole world. And if we could adjust the whole world, we'd see a whole different paradigm rolling out with the way that people thought about health and wellness. Like you're saying, this hiking bike path is just like full of people now. Well, people are starting to wake up.
Right.
And they don't want to be stressed. They don't want to have thoughts that are terrible. They don't want to have traumas in their relationships or inside their body. They want to have somebody that can help them. And that's why I fell in love with chiropractic 12 years ago when I worked in the first office I stepped foot into, is I saw that we were helping people, but only people that really understood the chiropractic message were the people in the offices and at the seminars. If I went down to the local restaurant and I said, hey, what do you think about a chiropractor? They would say, oh, they pop necks. But they don't realize that a chiropractic adjustment has a downstream effect on the nervous system, on the immune system, on the organ system. And like you said, everything, the cells, the muscular system, like the whole system of the body is affected when something's out of alignment and subluxated. So right now, I think our whole world has a subluxation, and we need to have chiropractors go correct that.
Yeah, I would highly agree. I mean, I know for me, myself, when I get my spine checked and then adjusted as necessary, just the exhale that I usually make getting off of the table, and I deal with the day just a whole lot better. I don't ask my patients how they're feeling or how they're doing when they come back into the office for subsequent visits. I ask them, what are you experiencing these days? And they'll tell you, they're like, well, gosh, I'm doing this. Maybe their back pain is still there because it's not had the healing process, hasn't had time to work, but they start experiencing all these other things. And probably my favorite compliment I get in the office quite often is, I never knew I could live like this. And to your point, the earth doesn't know at what a high vibrational frequency it can live at, because it's not, or at least humanity doesn't, because it's not well adjusted overall. And so that's kind of my goal. And by kind of, that's my goal, that every man, woman, and child gets an opportunity to have their spine checked for vertebral subluxation, so that we can all vibrate then and be in better community at a much higher level than we ever thought was possible. And what a cool world that would be.
So maybe you could tell us, how are you using social media to your advantage, and especially now during these times where more people are online than ever before?
Social media is, it's a little bit of advertising. So I'm doing this with you guys because when it goes out, I can share it with folks and just say, hey, look, your doctor's out talking with people, patients like that their doctor is noticed, because then they start thinking, okay, well, maybe he is kind of legit and not just a guy down the street. These days, what's been great about social media is everybody knows how to either Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or some version of that, because now what you can use is you can make your office day a little bit more efficient or see a few more people, because now what you can do is you can do health talk classes online. So you can just Zoom people to the chiropractors traditionally have always said, especially these days, because as Jim said, we're so much more distracted with so many more things, is instead of trying to get everybody to your office at 7, just have them tune in wherever they are, on their phone, their iPad, their home computer, their work computer, come in for, 15, 30 minutes, and we're going to give you the chiropractic story. And so it makes it a whole lot easier for people to participate in that educational aspect. Other things with social media is people want to feel connected. So tell people who you are. If you look at my stuff, there's probably a lot of stuff about bourbon on there. There's stuff about cigars on there. There's dad jokes on there. There's how to appear smarter in a meeting, which is maybe the best Christmas gift I've gotten in a while, because I'm in enough meetings. I try to appear smart as I can. And so that just lets people know. And the funny thing is, the more personal of who I am type posts those are the ones in my world that get the largest traction. So those are the ones that get the most likes. They're the ones that get the most comments, and they're the ones that tend to be shared when people do share it. I still throw out chiropractic content when I feel I want to throw some out. So I throw that on there. Me personally, I'm probably still a big Facebooker. I don't Instagram near as much as I should. So that's probably next on the list. But it's not that hard to do social media. And the nice thing about social media, if you do have anxiety in front of people, I mean, I'm looking right now at a camera. You guys are over here. But it's just talking to a stick. And so it's easier for me to have that conversation of just say, this is who I am and what I want to say. And then I have to divorce myself. Sometimes I put stuff out there that I think's absolute gold and nobody looks at it, or at least nobody responds in a like, a love, or a comment. That doesn't mean they didn't see it. And so it's a super easy vehicle to put something out there. The nice thing you can do these days is you can do a vlog or a blog and say it's 10 minutes long. Well, now you can chop it up into 1 minute segments. So now you took 10 or one piece of content and you made 10 out of it. And you can recycle that stuff pretty easy. So it's a super versatile tool to get your message out. Podcasting's fantastic because now you're just sitting there talking with your friends in most cases. And so it's a super easy way to create a conversation. And so those are some of the ways, I guess, that I'm using it. And I'm not even remotely using it to its fullest because of my other job as a teacher. I mean, if I wasn't teaching, I'd probably be putting out a whole lot more content because I'd have more time to do it.
Have you gotten into Clubhouse at all?
I'm in Clubhouse and I haven't listened. And one of these days I'm gonna. So I hear it's great. People are really enjoying it. So I'm glad that I at least got an invite from somebody. So I'm in there and I get the notices to go. I have to be careful with myself because I'm a real squirrel guy. And so I can get distracted. But that's going to be my next one that I'm probably going to jump into.
Yeah, I think it's a bandwidth thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a busy real life, it's distracting to jump into a virtual world a lot. And if you don't build boundaries and strategies around social media, people will think all you do is that.
Right.
And then you'll start realizing that mold's growing in the corner of your shower and that you haven't taken your trash out and you haven't done laundry. So I think that when we have, families and friends and a real life outside of the social presence, but we also have to learn how to leverage social media to our favor. And I think that if you don't have a presence and you don't build a consistent repetition with it, somebody else is, and this is FOMO, fear of missing out. Somebody else is going to come in,
right,
and they're going to learn these tactics and these techniques, and they're going to build a business on there that you could have capitalized on. But there's a different way for all of us to build a business, and some people do really well on social media. And I'll tell you this, based on what you said, some of the people that never comment, like, or anything on my posts are some of my biggest supporters. So it's crazy how some people have different types of interaction on the platforms as well. And those people that will give you a comment, a like, are the ones, or a share, are not the ones that will typically do business with you.
Right.
So those are the supporters.
Yeah.
Those are the people that really appreciate what you're doing because you're speaking their language. But the ones that never comment, like, or share, those are the people actually that are watching what you're doing in order to make a move with you later.
Right.
So I think that that's something to take into consideration too, is if you do present yourself the right way, the right opportunities will come to you, because that's basically the window into your life. When people don't see you daily, they get a chance to get a snapshot of who is Brian Dooley. Oh, the guy likes cigars. He likes bourbon. He likes chiropractic. Okay. He's a professor. He runs a private practice. He has children. He has a wife. Awesome. Brian Dooley. People get a chance to understand who you are. And I think that that's kind of the litmus test for what we do on social media, is how do we want people to see us from the outside? And, you can share political statements and probably lose some friends. You can share, your position on XYZ and you might gain some support or you might lose some support. So it's a way to, it's like, my mom always told me, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. And that's kind of how I look about a social media post. If you don't like what it made somebody feel, wait 5 minutes. They'll forget. Like
Right.
you said, the attention span for being a squirrel is greater than ever as well. I think they say that people have the attention span of a goldfish when it comes to like when they're scrolling. So it takes a lot to like have people interact with you nowadays as well. So I think social media is just a really interesting thing. And yeah, there's so many platforms coming all the time. So Clubhouse is something I've enjoyed.
Right.
So yeah, when you're ready, let me know, and we'll bring you into that platform and give you all the trainings around it.
Cool. No, I'd be glad to. I mean, the beauty about social media is you feel like, I mean, you and I, Jim, and we're talking today because of social media. So you and I ran into each other on Facebook. And it was through Facebook that we were able to have you in back when we did the G10 days. That's why we're talking. And so that happens to be more than I can imagine, because you get out talking about chiropractic or talking about whatever. Then you go to an event like a Mile High or a New Beginnings and those other places that I've seen you at. And all of a sudden, all these people come up to, oh, it's so good to see you. I don't know who you are. And they're like, oh, no, yeah. Oh, then when they say their name, then I recognize them because we have had interactions on social media. So sometimes I don't put the face with the name. But as soon as you hear the name, you're like, oh, well, how's it going? And that's the interesting thing. You already feel like you're friends with these people. And you can do that as a business owner in your community of just providing a space where people can come together, whether it's on your practice page, doing a VIP group, whatever it is, because then when you walk out into the community, you're like, yeah, that's that cool guy or that's that cool lady that does all these cool things. And so people already feel like they know you. And so you're building trust and rapport without a lot of work. And so the amount of people I meet via social media, and it's so easy. I had somebody come in to class last Thursday to talk about branding, had never talked to this person one-on-one ever. But as I was watching her on another group that I'm in, I'm like, wow, that sounds like really good information. So then it was just I sent a Facebook messenger and said, hey, I think that's really good information. Would you want to speak to class? Sure. That was okay. That was easy. And now the students get a much richer learning experience, because when you're a teacher, the interesting thing is, well, if you were so good at all this, you wouldn't be teaching. So, and I don't believe in that. But it's able to say, when I say this and they're not wanting to listen to me, they're going to listen to a guest usually when they come on. And so social media has opened up, I guess, the quality of guests I can bring into class. And the cool thing is, it used to be if you were running through Spartanburg, I'd try to track you down and see if I could grab you for an hour for class. Now we zoom you in. So our school has the technology for you to zoom in where you can see the class, they can see you, and it's just like you're there pretty much, but you could be sitting in your living room while you do it in Colorado. And now we're offering a much more vibrant experience with experts in any field we choose to bring into the school. So to that level, social media has been huge as far as being able to bring new things to the students.
I think there's a lot to say about that. And there's a lot to say about the learning environment that you're able to, once again, augment to the reality that you're looking to present to your student base, but also how you build relationships. This show that we do wouldn't be possible without the relentless approach that I built a campaign for and Luke supported to get us onto, the front lines of sharing the chiropractic message. The reason that we get any guest we've ever had was because of our approach on Facebook. So 239 episodes into this, every single one of those relationships was built through Facebook. And maybe a handful of them were built in real life. And then we converted it through a conversation through Facebook. But I think that, 9 years ago, I'm like, I'd never get on that. That's stupid. Like, why would I spend my time doing that? I'd rather go to the weight room. Right. I'd rather go ride my bike. I'd rather go out and like have dinner with friends. But now, once I realized that if we wanted to make a movie on chiropractic, we had to go to where everybody was. And I think that that's really what we have to do, is go to where everybody is.
Mm,
And that's the magic of this connection of social media. And it's not so much that I want to be on the platform. Actually, I'm pretty annoyed by it, not most days.
right.
And I don't want to interact as much as I used to be on the platform. I want people to help me now. I want to have a team supporting the time spent on the platforms, because, when you realize that your time is valuable, and so one thing you'll never get back.
Mm.
And, creating a legacy is what we're doing, but also connecting with amazing people with great stories in a niche that we love is something very valuable. So when you're talking about building relationships with people and them seeing you, I can't tell you how many times I've come to an event like Mile High or New Beginnings, and people are amped just to meet me
Mhm.
because of our consistency with the posting strategies that we have when it comes to Facebook. So everything you're saying is like so important for people to hear, and bringing in great resources to work with these young minds that they can learn what's trending, I think is so important, because sometimes the classroom can become stale. I hated going to college
Right.
just because I'm like, it's the same thing every day. And it's hot in this room and the teacher talks in a certain tone and it's not exciting. So
Mm.
I think if you can bring some excitement with some relationship brand into the learning environment, it breaks the monotony of it. And it actually builds more credibility for you as the practitioner, as the teacher, because you're actually sourcing good information and you're not always having to show up as the expert. So I think
Well,
it's a really good strategy.
I like where you're saying that, because you, as a chiropractor in town, you want to establish yourself as the trusted authority in the community. And the cool thing about being a trusted authority is you don't have to know everything, just know somebody that knows something. And so when I'm in class, I'm bringing in all these other people. And so I'm going to tell them, listen, I'm not a marketer. I don't have a marketing degree. I can tell you some things that I've learned, some things that I've been trained on, and all that stuff. But I said, now let's hear the experts and put their take on it. See, when they say this, this is when I see that. And what the students said recently about this last one, that it really finally, what we've been talking about all quarter, now just really sunk in, and like, okay, this is really something I got to do. Students inherently are going to resist information, because that means more learning a little bit, because in chiropractic school, they're already tired, especially when you're talking to a 12th quarter class. And so when they have that ability to get the freshness, it's not just me talking at them. Okay, all right, what he's saying, I sort of got it and I sort of believed it, but I got these other things. Wow, this other person who's usually not a chiropractor. Sometimes I bring in chiropractors, sometimes I don't. Depending on what I'm talking about. And I actually like the times when it's not a chiropractor. I say, listen, I'm not telling you this. Chiropractic's not telling you this. The world of being an entrepreneur is telling you this. And so it's been super helpful, because kind of going back full circle, when COVID hit, and now we've got to do, we got to put all of our stuff, a radically new way of teaching from what we'd always done. There's two ways. It's going to be like, how can I win this versus how can I win this? Right. So there's two ways of like, I'm never going to win. And then there was like, I got this, I'm going to win, and it's going to be awesome at the end. And I think from the college's standpoint, I think that's where we pretty much took it, was you could feel it amongst the faculty of saying, we have to win this. Was it perfect? No. Struggles? Yes. But that being said, what we were able to do to just have that wherewithal to do things in a different way, a lot of that was using social media. It's just able to get our message across. So we didn't allow circumstances to dictate whether we got the message across. Circumstances dictated how we got it across, but we were still able to get it across. And it's social media is great. It supercharges everything you want to do.
Well, I give you a big nod of my cap for doing what you've been doing, and how you've been integrating the classroom, and how you've been growing your practice. It's in Pickens, right?
Yep.
And how you've been growing your personal practice and building your relationship on social media with other practitioners and other people doing great work out there. I think it's so important to build your ecosystem and cross-pollinate other people's messages into what you're doing, and to find credible resources of connection to not only enrich your life, but the ones that are rising up that will be the future of this profession.
Mm.
There's a lot to be said. But I guess my in closing today, you work with students. What's some maybe 2 takeaways that you could tell them as they become the chiropractor of the future?
So if you're a student, number one probably would be find your community, find your tribe, find the people that you jive with, especially with social media. When I got out of school, there wasn't a thing called the Facebook. I mean, there was barely Google back then. So when I got out of school, you really felt like you were on an island, unless you went to a homecoming, or maybe you went to a dynamic essential, maybe you went to a new beginnings, a mile high, and that was the only time you found community. So find your tribe and stick with them. Find accountability groups, because that's what I've probably really enjoyed over the last 10 years or so, is I don't feel like I'm on an island anymore. Even though I'm here in Pickens, South Carolina, I can be talking to somebody in I don't know, California, just pretty easy, in order to sometimes with a group. Sometimes I'm the one giving the attaboys or the attagirls, and then sometimes I'm the one receiving the attaboys. And so absolutely number one would be find a group that you jive with, and just be present in that group. I don't know. Number two, just start thinking about what you want your business to be now. Don't wait until the end of your education to decide, how am I going to create relationships? What am I going to do? Google and YouTube are fantastic. Anything you need to know is on there of how to do something. So if you feel like a school hasn't taught you something, then just look it up. Just hit it in the Google and see what comes up. So number one would be start thinking about your business now, even if you're in first quarter or first trimester. Then number two, and find a tribe that's going to get you there. There's a gazillion groups. Some of them are all chiropractic. Some of them are mixed chiropractic. Some have no chiropractors in them at all. But you can learn a lot from a lot of people. So I guess that would be my big thing. And I mean, really, number three, it's the best profession I can imagine being in. And so all the aggravation, all the challenges you might have in school, it is completely worth it. And so you will get there. If anybody ever just needs to talk, and you don't have to be a Sherman College person, I'll talk to anybody as far as my experience and what they're going through. I mean, I've been around long enough that I've probably gone through it myself, or if I haven't gone through it, I know somebody who has. So that would be my big takeaways is A, find your tribe, and then B, start thinking about what your business is going to be. Because you're going to be in business pretty soon. No matter 3.5 years of chiropractic school doesn't take long. You're in, and the next thing you know, you're graduating. So having a plan is going to be super, super important. And then meet people like Jim and Luke, so you can leverage your message and do it in a way that's super efficient, where lots of people hear you and lots of people are signing up and at your door when you have the grand opening.
So
Great advice.
What are some websites or resources you could give our listeners if they want to go learn more about you after this interview?
Gosh, well, I mean, I have a Facebook page, Brian Dooley. You're welcome to do that. And then my business is Pickens Family Chiropractic LLC on Facebook. Probably the Facebook page is the easiest way to get in touch. You'll certainly find me on Facebook Messenger. If anybody wanted to email me, it's B as in Brian Dooley, DOOLEY @sherman.edu. And I'm more than happy to get on a call. We can do it by face or just by voice. So those are probably the easiest ways to get in touch and learn a bit about me. If you want to learn about chiropractic and Sherman College, www.sherman.edu will tell you everything you would need to know about that.
Well, it's a real honor to be able to have somebody like you on our show today that is not only an educator, but a practitioner. You're unique in the chiropractic space. And we just want to thank you for being our guest today. And yeah, I can't wait till the next time that we can take some turns on the Jersey Turnpikes together.
Not just one turnpike, Jim, all of the turnpike. And that will be one of my greatest, and that's the beauty of this whole thing. And when we talk about chiropractic, and I think a lot of this thing we're talking about, it's community. And that's what chiropractic is, to where all the people that I know, like at some point, I just have a great story with every one of them. And so it just makes it real easy to go to work. It makes it real easy to turn on my computer and see what other people are doing, because we're all rooting for each other to win. And that's what I like about chiropractic. It's about community and the community winning, right? So you take the cells of your body working together, and it's the community of that organism that's going to win. And it's no different with our personal relationships. So hanging out with you guys, every time I do it, I know I'm better.
And remember, everyone listening at home, if you want to launch a successful podcast just like ours, go to chirohustlemasterclass.com. Dr. Brian Dooley, thank you so much for being back on the show with us today, and we want you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to get ready to go practice. So I'm going to go take that hour. This is a good one. I don't have to process frustrating students. I get to process hanging out with two cool guys. So this will be an even better drive home.
Well, thank you.
Awesome, Brian. We will see you soon, my friend.
Thank you, fellas.
All right. See you soon.
We'll see you.